Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Buccaneers Live. This is episode 42 of the Buccaneers podcast. I'm your host, Tampa Tones. We're joined in by some of the crew tonight. We're without a couple guys, but that is okay. That's why there's plenty of us to go around. You can follow me on Twitter at TrickyTonesBGTE. You can follow the pod at Buccaneers. We also are on Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube, and so much more. It's another great day to talk football. It's a victory weekend. Game ended late Thursday. Obviously, we're doing post-game shows this year, but with the game ending so late Thursday, after midnight Eastern time, it was just a little too much to handle as more than half our crew is in the Eastern time zone. Without further ado, though, we only got a short little half-hour pod edition, so we're going to get to the chase here. We're going to bring in the crew. We got Cody Katz. We're going to start with Cody. Cody, how are you feeling after that opening night W?
The biggest thing I took from us is it just seems like we're learning how to win. That's the biggest thing I took from that game. That's a game we lose a couple years ago. So I feel like, the offense looked good at times with all the turnovers and all. We look good. We look bad. Defense, I don't think it was so much the defense looked bad as it was Dallas just came up with a great game plan. So I don't know. I'm not too worried about the defense just yet. That's a great offense. But, yeah, the biggest thing I took away is, we're finding ways to win instead of lose like we used to.
Yeah, that is a key component there. Finding ways to win instead of finding ways to lose like we used to. It used to be final drives where we'd throw interceptions or obviously ultimately fall up short. Obviously, once in a while, I won't discredit some of our starters, in particular Freeman and Winston had occasional comeback drives, but now it's becoming the expected, right? Like we expected Brady and this Bucs offense to march down there and get a game-winning field goal. We're back in the day. Odds are we're going to lose that one. So I agree with you there. We're learning how to just come back and win. I think, as we'll talk about a little more, as we talked about before the pod, some defensive aspects were concerning. Anyways, great to have you on as always, brother. Cats, how we doing tonight? Victory weekend still in sorts. I know you're busy with some Rays baseball as well.
Yeah, the Rays need to break their two-game losing streak here. But as far as the Bucs go, yeah, it's a good win, obviously. I mean, they didn't play their best. They'll be the first to tell you. I think Tom Brady said it the moment that game ended. We got a lot of – what did he say? We got a lot to get better at? I forgot what he said. He always says the same thing. But it's especially true, too, when you turn the ball over 4 times. But the thing about it is you looked at the Bucs and the way they operated offensively – speak of the turnovers, you really didn't feel like the Cowboys were doing much to stop us. If we didn't stop themselves, and that sounds arrogant, but it's true. They still put up 30 points. So they got to clean that up. Defensively, I thought Kellen Moore called a great game for Dallas. I don't think Todd Bowles had his best game as a play caller defensively. I think they probably, if I were guessing, Bowles and the Bucs defense are probably expecting Dak's first game back. They were going to try to run the ball with Zeke, get that going, protect their quarterback, not have him drop back a bunch. They did the exact opposite. It worked for Dallas to nearly pull it off, but thankfully for us, it didn't. Not enough to win the game anyway.
Yeah, I think Dak, obviously, we talked about it before on our pregame show as well last week. Last Sunday that was, but we talked about it on the pregame show as well that a lot of fans were expecting, a sluggish Cowboys and stuff, but we knew Dak was going to play good. We all said he was a top 10 quarterback, and Cody and Bucko pointed out his potential. Although we did all predict Bucs victories, it came true. We all thought a little more victory, but we did give credit to where credit was due. We did tip the cap to Dak. We did say, he could put up points, especially Cody. He said he could see it, being back and forth at some point, and essentially was. But we've seen what happened. Couple mistakes made here by the Bucs. It could have ended in a bigger victory for sure. We made a couple boo-boos at the goal line going in. Not necessarily at the goal line, I guess, but plays that were, near the goal line that ended up. So anyways, boys, we're going to depict what we liked, what we didn't like, then we're going to get into some players. But first, what are you guys mad at? What the hell made your blood boil? What made you fuming? What did you not like about that game, whether it was play calling, whether it was personnel, whether it was the roster, whether it was something that encountered during the game, whether it was roughing in the game, just something that occurred during opening night's game? As we got a comment from our friend Killa Huncho. How you doing, Hunch? Good to have you checking in as always, my friend. But anyways, what did you guys dislike from that game? What's one thing that you could take away that leaves you with the sour taste in your mouth? Cats, will start with you this time.
Yeah, to me, it's don't turn the ball over like that. I don't care about the Hail Mary, although that one got a little interesting. But the other two, the one that Fournette dropped that turned into a pick, and of course Godwin's fumble. You can't do that. You can't be doing that because otherwise, if you take those two plays out, was there a fourth turnover, or did we turn over 3 times? I can't even remember now. Was there another one?
There were 4: Rojo fumble, Godwin fumble, and 2 technically Brady interceptions.
Right. The Rojo one, whatever. I mean that. It looked like a nice play by the defense to me. Punch the ball loose. But on the other 2 that I mentioned, those are just unforced to me. Godwin, very uncharacteristic. I can't remember him ever fumbling before. I could be wrong. I don't remember him ever having a fumble that was recovered by the defense. He had a drop, too, on what could have been a touchdown. So you clean up those errors. Obviously, defensively, I'd like to play better as well, but you clean those up, and that game's still not close.
Yeah, my old man said the same thing about Godwin fumbling. He's like, I don't really remember him ever fumbling before that happening before. So I agree. These little things of the game that we're not used to seeing, perhaps. Especially in the playoff run for sure when we cleaned up our football. A couple of them showed on Thursday, that's for sure. And the Bucs actually, if you look at the comparison side by side in terms of turnovers, like Katz mentioned, we had 4. In terms of time of possession, in terms of penalty yardage, the Bucs got outmanned on a couple big categories that usually raise red flags in a football game, where if you're on the losing side of those, well, the Bucs are on the losing side of all of those things, and they still happen to get away with victory in this one. And it was, even though Kat said turnovers, something we could improve on for sure. Couple easy mistakes, Godwin fumbling, and then the thing off Lenny F's hands, obviously Hail Mary interception. That's going to happen on 75-80% of those Hail Marys. So, we can't really help that. But nonetheless, Cody, is that your main point of concern, or one thing that left the sour taste in your mouth, or did you have a different topic to discuss?
It's just like Arian's always preaching Bucs beating the Bucs. We were just sloppy. The turnovers, the penalties. I forget how many penalties, but it was over 100 yards in penalties. And some of the calls were iffy, but false starts, offsides, stuff like it's week 1. I'm sure it'll get cleaned up, but you can't be doing that versus good teams. You can't have over 100 yards in penalties and turn the ball over and then still win. That's just not something that's going to happen consistently. So I'd go with penalties.
Yeah, penalties were frustrating too at certain points in times, especially the Jensen penalty. That's one that I didn't really think anything happened there. But other than that, there were a couple penalties for sure where it's like, what are our guys doing? Costing ourselves a little bit, shooting ourselves in the foot. The Bucs beating the Bucs. That offsides is crucial at one point in time. There are just a couple things in terms of penalties where it's like, well, we definitely have to cut back on those. And that's something where we improved along the way last year for sure. Got a little better as we went on of cutting back penalties. But I remember at the beginning of the season last year, we were definitely struggling with penalties for sure. And we lost opening day last year, and we had a couple struggles at the beginning, but it got better. This year, we struggle with penalties opening day. We do escape with a W, so obviously that could be in part due to a couple missed kicks, couple missed field goals, missed extra point. But in other words, Bucs escaped with a victory. As Cody pointed out, the yardage, as Katz pointed out, the turnovers. I guess one thing that left me a little bitter and not necessarily bitter, I guess, but it's been the focal point of a lot of Twitter talk and other podcast talk, radio talk, etc. I really want to find out what the hell. Obviously, a lot of people think they could tell what's going on, but we've seen a lot of Brady shaking his head later in the game, and Byron and him talking. I wonder if it was what people think, if Brady was shaking off Byron all the time, or what was going on there. I'm just curious to see. And if it is Brady shaking off Byron, then I think something's got to change, obviously, in terms of Bucks needing to call different plays, because the one person that's most important, that's comfortable with the play calling, is Tom Brady. So if Byron Leftwich is continuing to struggle, and again, we don't know this, I'm kind of just assuming here. We've seen a couple head shakes, but if Byron Leftwich continues to struggle, calling Brady-esque type plays that benefit Brady in the offense, then I'm not really sure how, I'm not really sure how I feel about that, because we do kind of have to cater to Tom Brady and the plays he likes, and we elaborated that at year's beginning as well. So we'll see how that goes the rest of the year. But if it does come out that Brady, kind of took over that last couple of drives, or that last drive, and did his own rodeo and did his own thing in terms of play calling, tip of the cap to him, and job well done, as we know he could always do as usual. Fellas, now one thing that left us smiling like hell from the game, one thing that left an image in your head imprinted from the game, one great takeaway from Thursday's game. Cody, we'll start with you this time.
Special teams. I know that sounds crazy, but Tampa has been – I've been a fan for over 20 years. It seems like we're always bad on special teams, or at least have been for the last 10-plus years. And special teams were huge. We hit the kicks, had some good run backs, and Pinion with the punts, repeatedly pinned them deep. And I don't know how it can get lost with our defense, the stars on defense and offense, but special teams matters. The field position matters. He helped us out a lot that game. It's surprising to me. I'm not necessarily saying it was the most important part of the win or anything like that, but just, I don't know, surprising, and hopefully that keeps up.
Yeah, special teams was key for sure. Right after the game, we talked about it, how important that was. I mean, as you said, Pinion perhaps had his best game as a Buccaneer that game. He had some of his best punts that game. As me and my old man talked about, we watched a game together. It's like we don't even get nervous when a game-winning kick's on the line anymore with Ryan Suckup. It's like back in the day, you used to sweat those things out. Now, obviously, any kicker, it's nervous to end the game, but you know what I'm saying. The Bucs are at the point where Suckup is reliable enough to feel comfortable with that. And then Mickens doing what he did, getting the call, obviously, mainly through the preseason. The expectation was rookie wide receiver Jalen Darden was going to come out and take over the returning duties and maybe be a little gadget player in other types of fashions and ways as well. But Mickens got the call, and whether that had to do with rain early in the day and perhaps impacting that decision or what, Mickens did get the call. He made a couple nice returns, and that was good to see. What we usually get from Mickens, and there's completely nothing wrong with it. We always get reliable return hands with him. You never worry that Mickens is going to fumble, which is beautiful, but you never really get that flash and dash. Well, this game, he brought it, man. He had a couple good returns. He was getting up that sideline. So I really like the fact that Mickens played well, and he played well enough to earn himself a roster spot that ultimately led to the dismissal of rookie defensive back Chris Cooper, who they did release yesterday. So I agree completely, Cody. Special teams was honestly freaking outstanding Thursday. Cats, what's your main benefit takeaway from Thursday night's game? Are you going with special teams as well, or you got a lasting image of something else?
How about the offensive line? I mean, how often was Brady touched? I mean, I'm going back to last year in the playoffs too. That was the area going back to before last season even. Brady's going to this team, man. That offensive line been questionable. The Bucs offensive line, the insert whatever other quarterback was here before, they screwed it up. Well, I don't know, man. They looked once again. I didn't see him get touched. I saw him throw 4 touchdowns. I saw him nearly throw a few more. We didn't really try to run the ball much. because we didn't really need to run the ball much. I thought Leftwich, circling a little bit back to that, I thought he called a great game. I think late in games, when you're in a 2-minute situation, that's where the quarterback should take over the play calling. So if Brady was waving him off there, that's fine by me. I have no problem with that in that scenario. But overall, the offensive line did a great job. I don't remember him really getting touched, and that's why he was able to do what he did. And we didn't have the ball that much either. Time of possession was heavily in the favor of the I was about to say Tigers, Cowboys, because we turned the ball over a few times and they had some long drives and put together some good drives themselves. But when we had the ball, we hit on a lot of big plays, and Brady had plenty of time back there. So kudos to that group up front.
Yeah, the group up front continues to get better as things go on. I think maybe one or two flags on maybe Marpet and Worse did get thrown, but those flags were either, at points where it didn't really matter too much then. But they absolutely held their own against the front, couple of guys on that front seven of Dallas that people were talking about to have big games. They didn't really have a huge game, and that front seven really held their own, gave Brady time to throw. That offensive line really held their own, gave Brady time to throw, found a couple guys open down the field. Obviously, Godwin should have caught that one. AB caught a nice long touchdown. Brady had guys open left and right. Gronk had a great fake shed block go out. So between O-line and tight ends, giving Brady the time needed, I certainly agree. The group up front did extraordinary. And if I could take one takeaway, I'll just be different here. I was going to go special teams or offensive line. To me, those were two great things that occurred, obviously, in that game. But one other thing that I could tip of the cap to, the veterans playing well. You got Gronk, AB, Brady, all older guys, all performing at high levels. And obviously, week one last year, AB wasn't a buck yet. Gronk couldn't even move week one last year. Brady, obviously, he had that pick six and he had another interception to begin week one last year. And although he had two this year, wasn't really his fault, right? So it was just awesome seeing the veterans all go off. I mean, Gronk looked like young Gronk again, 90 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. AB looked like vintage AB, 5 catches and 1 rush, equating to about 130 yards and a touchdown. Then Brady obviously outplayed Dak Prescott. Everyone's talking about Dak Prescott right now. Not enough Tom Brady love going on right now. He had a hell of a game out there. So that was incredible to see. The old guys playing well. Shout out to Brady, Gronk, and AB. That was good to see, as always. And speaking of players now, since we're on the players topic, since I'm bringing up players, we still got about a little over 10 minutes here with the Buccaneers Live. We're going to get into one player we like now, one player we didn't like, or one player we think needs improvement. We're going to start negative so we can end on a positive note here. We'll start with Cody here on this one. Cody, what's one player or coach, we'll go with one guy from the Bucs staff or roster that left you with, what's up, man? Maybe some improvements could be had.
It's like I don't want to pick on him too much because you look at his stat line, it's good. But Chris Godwin, he dropped. That pass from Tom Brady, he walked in for a touchdown, perfect pass, and then he fumbled on the goal line. And again, I think he had over 100 yards receiving, it was still a good game, but still 2 real bad plays. It's more uncharacteristic of Godwin, maybe, but that's just the first player that comes to my mind.
Yeah, and I totally agree. Uncharacteristic of Godwin for sure. We've seen it a couple times in the Washington game last year, but other than that, he just doesn't really drop the football too much or fumble too much. But obviously Godwin's a guy who ended up helping us down the road, so I think a lot of people are a little disappointed, but he still had a decent game. But he does have to fix those mistakes. I mean, even if he makes one of those 2 plays, he holds onto the ball. But again, that's something that will work itself out. And as Kenny said in the chat comment, seen way too much negativity lately. Fans are demanding perfection week one. So many positives to be encouraged about. This is a game in years past we would have lost. Kenny, that's what we talked about to begin the show as well. Cody, Katz, and I all brought that up, and how years past, no offense to other quarterbacks, but now you expect the comeback to happen before your eyes, where in years past, those comebacks never really happened. So we do think a lot of Bucs fans are on the high wave right now. A lot of them are critiquing us too much after week one. I mean, we won. Remember last year after we lost week one, everyone was freaking out on Twitter. Everyone was burning the damn place to the ground. It's like we won this game and everyone's overreacting. A lot of good things to take away from it. And Cleveland Mead's got a comment as well. Thanks, Ken, for that comment, but we agree with the negativity. We'll get back to that comment. Cleveland Mead, real quick, though. Great show. Better men. Thanks a lot, Joe and Cleve. We appreciate you guys tuning in, tapping in on this fine evening. Good luck to your Colts tomorrow as they battle the trash Seahawks. That'll be an interesting one. So we hope the Colts win that one. Fellas, nonetheless, Kenny's comment, we elaborated on this before we get to Katz's player to improve. We all agree with this one, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. And it's kind of like with my Godwin comment. Like, I hate picking on anybody, and I know Dean's going to get trashed, so I didn't say anything about Dean. He did not have a great game. I don't think anybody will argue with that, but it wasn't as bad. If you go back and watch that game, his game wasn't as bad as it's made out to seem. Some of it was the scheme. Some of it was him, but what other people I feel that are trashing Dean, I feel like are forgetting, that's 3 great wide receivers. That's 3, maybe not 3 wide receiver ones, but 2 wide receiver ones they went up against. And the scheme they called that game, the quick passing scheme, they neutralized their pass rush most of the game. And no corner can just cover everybody forever. So it's just, I don't know. That's why I went with Godwin. At the end of the day, I'm happy. It's week one. It was sloppy, but the most important thing is we found a way to win. So Bucs fans should be happy. That's a good team. Like, I think people are looking at the Dallas team from last year without Dak. Like, Dallas is a playoff team. Dallas will be in the playoff. Like, barring some injuries or something like that, that's a playoff football team that we found a way to win. And we did not come anywhere close to playing our best game. So, to me, there's more to be encouraged about than there is to be upset about. So, I don't know. Bucs fans are weird. Fans are weird.
I agree, Cody, with you 100%, and Kenny agrees with you as well. He says it's one thing to critique like you gentlemen are doing, but too many people saying trash like Cody is saying with Dean. To clarify, I mean, others are calling Dean trash, not Cody. That's 100% right, Kenny, and I'm telling people this. Dean had a rough game, but we've kind of seen this this has been Jamel Dean, right? I mean, some games he looks like a top cornerback, right? And then a couple games this season he struggles. But that's a lot of DBs out there. I remember his rookie year against Seattle, they went at him, and then the next game I forget who he played exactly, but everyone was praising Jamel Dean. Oh, he looks like a number 1 corner. It looks like a lockdown corner. Jamel Dean could easily bounce back against Atlanta next week. SMB's probably out 3 to 6 weeks. It's the Buccaneers estimation. I know a lot of other people are saying the same time frame now as well, but we estimated 3 to 6 weeks. So if SMB is out 3 to 6 weeks, that means that Jamel Dean's going to have to step up, play a big-time role. And we're used to seeing him play a big-time role, and I think it'll be interesting to see him on Russell Gage next week, maybe Kelvin Ridley a couple times next week. I think Jamel Dean is going to have an extraordinary game next week. Like we said, he's showed some really good spurts in his Buccaneers tenure, 1 or 2, 3 struggle games over his career. I mean, he has 1 or 2 of those a year. It's going to happen. Next week, he's going to blow the doors off the roof. And I agree, Cody. They did have 2 number 1s and a high-end number 2, so it's hard to cover all those guys. Kat, what say you here with Kenny's comments, and if you had one player who you hope could improve on next week against Atlanta?
Right, I was going to say, the secondary in general, but absolutely. I mean, Dean's been a solid player for us. Again, I think, you're looking at Dallas. Kellen Moore called a really good game. They've got some really talented receivers back there. We didn't get a ton of pressure on Dak. Part of that, I think they were doing a good job getting the ball out quickly. So, you hope that against Atlanta, you watch some tape, Todd Bowles goes back and looks at it, and you probably expect Atlanta to come out with a similar game plan, because you don't expect teams that are going to try to run the ball against us. That's not what, oh gosh, guys, you're going to have Arthur Smith. Falcons head coach. Good play caller. I don't know, we'll see how he starts as head coach tomorrow. He's going to probably have a similar game plan. They're going to probably try to throw the ball, and you're going to need to get pressure on Matt Ryan to help out your corners. Everything works in sync because they've got some good receivers as well. So, no, I have no issue with Jamel Dean. It wasn't his greatest night. It wasn't his worst night. You might see worse. You might see better. But no, some fans I think are just very reactive. They've haven't watched enough to go throwing out, well, this player's trash, this player's trash. Look, it's a tough team. They have some good receivers. He was inserted into a spot where he's going to play more snaps than expected due to injury. That's tough to do as well. So, yeah, I mean, I was disappointed in a way with the defensive game plan in general that seemed to think from what this is just me, from what I'm guessing on how the game played out, that the Bucs, that goes on the coaching staff to me, it was expecting Dallas to come out and try to run the football and establish the run, and they did not do that. They took advantage of what they thought was the potential weakness of our defense and a strength of their offense, despite having Zeke at running back. And you know what? They did, and kudos to them on that. So I'm very happy with the win. That's what I take away with it is the Bucs certainly did not play their best game. They still won anyway. They shut out the Eagles after defending the Super Bowl title 20 years ago, 18, whatever it was, 2003. I still remember it. And what happened the next week? You know what? I'll leave it here. I hope they follow up this week 1 win defending the Super Bowl title better than they did the last time they followed up week 1, where they had 4 kicks blocked. 3. Yeah. So I hope they don't have 4 kicks blocked next week while I'm sitting there watching it.
I agree with everything you said, Kat, and I agree with Kenny's comments as well. What are the Cowboys going to do? Pick on Davis? Dean is a guy who is still a young guy in year 3. Remember, it was just last year Davis took that next step. Doesn't happen overnight. If Dean's worst night is several pass breakups against that trio of wide receivers this season, then I think we will be okay going forward. I absolutely can. Absolutely. And by the way, Kenny B is a good friend of the show, is a good friend of ours. He does some good work with Gene over at Buck What You Heard, and they're a partner with Bucks Report. So
Kenny B knows Brett Phillips, so he's a friend of everybody.
Well, Kenny B knows
anybody who's a friend of Brett Phillips or even knows Brett Phillips is a friend.
And he's a friend with
Nelson. He does. So
he's a friend with Nelson Aguilar too, I think, the wide receiver, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe, yeah, and I think he probably knows Joey Kneeball, who the Rays just signed. I'm sure he'll pitch in a game, in one game or so. But it's like, and also let me just add also, because it made it sound like I was picking on Todd Bowles. I will say this: when Dallas had a scenario on 3rd and goal around the 2, I believe it was, and they ran the ball, that was one, is a stupid play call, and 2, it was perfectly strung out by the Bucs defense. So when they did try to run the ball, and that was not often, they couldn't do it. So that was a major gaffe by Dallas. 1, in calling that play, and 2, kicking a field goal from 4th and goal on the 2, which cut the lead to 2 points, was a classic Mike McCarthy move. I really appreciated that as Bucs fan. So great coaching by Mike McCarthy there again. That's coming from the Bucs side, and I'm sure NFC foes are excited about that. But that was a great play, great play call there by my decision, kicking a 20-yard field goal. Thank you.
You just love Mike McCarthy, Kat. You just can't get enough of McCarthy.
He's an overrated coach. Yeah. No, I think I'm sure he's a very nice guy. He is a very nice guy. In fact, I'd probably be crabby if I had to deal with Aaron Rodgers for as long as he did too, as great a quarterback as Aaron Rodgers is. But I also think he's a vastly overrated coach. And when he called that, when I saw them on that 4th down, I'm thinking, all right, they ran the ball because they're thinking they're going to go for it on 4th down 21-16. He trots out his kicker to kick a 20-yard field goal. I am looking up at the stars, thanking the stars that they're not going to go for it there, down by 5 points, because all the analytics say you don't kick a field goal there, as I know it. So I really appreciated that. No, I have nothing against him personally. Just I think he's an overrated coach as far as some of the analytics are concerned. I, as you know, put a lot on analytics in all my sports, and I appreciated that he made a stupid coaching decision, because who knows if they go for it and get it, what happens? So we appreciate that.
Yeah, we do appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Mike McCarthy, for that. Fellas, as we log off here with our last little quick segment, just got a couple quick minutes left. Cody, one bright spot upon a player or coach in particular, and any last word for Bucks Nation as we head into week 2?
I've got 2 players. Both of them, it doesn't necessarily show up in the stat sheet, like how good they were. Like I always say Tom Brady's too easy, but no, this game I'm going to say Tom Brady. It was basically a perfect game. If you see the 2 interceptions, you think, but neither of them were his fault. I mean, maybe the Leonard one, it wasn't the best pass, but that's still a pass he should catch. The Hail Mary, I'm not counting that. He basically threw a perfect game, and he had, what should have been 2 more touchdowns left off the board. And then the other one's Vita Vea. Like the stat sheet, he's basically not on there. But that dude wreaked havoc all night. He was the only one getting consistent pressure on Dallas the entire night. And it's unfortunate. Like that's the life of a nose tackle, I guess. But it doesn't show up. But that dude, he was the best player on defense all night long, in my opinion. It's not even close.
Correct. I agree. I mean, Vita Vea was explosive all night, up the gap, up the middle. Obviously, stat sheet doesn't show everything, but if you watch the film, he damn near broke and exploded through that gap every time, and they had to hold him a couple times, and then they got away with a couple holds as well that, a couple people pointed out, including Kenny B, that the Cowboys seem to get away with from time to time, but Vea was a unit. He was a force, absolutely, and Tom Brady, fantastic decision as well. I mean, like you said, perfect game. He pitched out there pretty much. Tom Brady really carried the torch out there for this offense as expected. Kat, you got anyone else in mind, or you agree in that Vita Vea and Tom Brady are the two knights of shining armor from week 1?
I've got to concur with those 2 guys. Yeah, I can't dispute either of those. Absolutely 100%.
I'm not going to dispute either one. I will just throw 2 guys I'm going to also throw in because I would pick Tom Brady and Vea as well. But just to elaborate on the offense and defense, I'm just going to throw in Carlton Davis for the hell of a game he played. Locked down their number, whoever he played, obviously, mostly sometimes on Cooper, sometimes on, Lamb. Carlton Davis mainly shut down their number 1 all night, though, which is great to see. So, when people threw Carlton Davis's way, I think their QB rating was like 12 or 14, et cetera, something crazy low like that week 1. And, he had that interception that bounced in and out of CeeDee Lamb's hands as well. Good awareness to grab that football. So Carlton Davis and then Antonio Brown, obviously a lot of preseason hype. A lot of people were saying that AB could easily be the Bucs' best wide receiver this year. Well, his explosiveness showed why he could maybe do that. He could catch a ball. Also, guys, we elaborated it last season in the pod, but AB could also run the ball. He always gets 1 or 2 carries a game, and it's always for 5+ yards. So AB is actually not like a huge dual threat, but more oftentimes than not, he does get 1 carry, if not sometimes 2 a game, and they do result in net positive yardage. So between Tom Brady, Vita Vea, Carlton Davis, and AB, amongst others, some great things to take away. Fellas, any last words before we log off for the night and enjoy our weekends? As Kenny said, hey, thanks, Ken, for checking us out. He said, have a great night, squad. Anyone got last words?
Just to touch on what you said about AB, I feel like the rest of the league is in trouble with AB. He looks like Pittsburgh AB. He's explosive, fast, filthy route runner. I cannot wait to go back and watch the film. Apparently all 22 is coming back, so I am really looking forward to going. Like, you'll see how many catches he gets, but I guarantee he's open other times too. But, Godwin or Evans or whoever was open, so Brady doesn't go there with the ball. But that dude, if he stays healthy, he is going to be an absolute problem this year. You can't guard Godwin and AB in the intermediate with why you got Mike over top with a safety over the help, like a safety over top helping. Like there's no way you can cover the 3 of them. And then when you do, you got people like Gronk sneaking off the back for touchdowns. Like it's this team's going to be a lot of fun to watch this year. That was nowhere near our best game. And you take the turnovers and the drops and stuff away, we were dominant, and it was still nowhere near our best game. I mean, we basically scored at will. Like they really didn't stop us. So this is going to be a fun year. I'm looking forward to next week, and go Bucks.
Agreed, and that was really perhaps the tip of the iceberg, as we really didn't see too much of the likes of Scotty Miller, Cam Bray, O.J. Howard, Tyler Johnson. Darden was obviously inactive. We have a ton of other weapons, Gio Bernard. We're just getting started here, as Cody said. It was great to see, a lot of this stuff happen. Go Bucks. A lot of good weapon involvement. When you got Godwin and AB underneath, Evans over the top, you got a tight end. Most of the times Gronk, when he's tired, bam, OJ or Bray coming. Cats, any last words for the night to end this victory Saturday?
Well, I think Cody put it really well. They looked like they were really in sync offensively. Other than a couple night, like I said, nice punch out on the Rojo fumble by the Dallas player. But otherwise, a couple drops here and there, and they probably hang a 40 on them. And obviously, you're going to face some better defenses too. But you're going to also face some teams that aren't as good offensively as the Cowboys either. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what's coming next. They didn't play their best by any means. They still got the win. They go back and watch them tape themselves as well, make some adjustments, and look forward, get ready for on to Atlanta.
On to Atlanta, indeed, and we will be on to Atlanta. We got special guests from the Pewter Report joining us this week on this week's show. JC Allen, a good friend of Cody's, a friend of the show's. He'll be stepping in hopefully this week to help us prepare for the Atlanta game. That would be really cool if we could lock him in. That'd be incredible. So we're hoping JC Allen, a good friend of ours, a great contributor for the Pewter Report, to be joining us, formerly of the Bucks Report. He was on WDAE this morning as well with Blobner and Wise. So JC Allen, great thoughts, great takes. Hopefully he's here to help us prepare for the Falcons. We'll be live back with you guys on Thursday night for the Buccaneers weekly show, the weekday show. As we said this year, we're going to have the weekday show pretty much every Thursday. Then we're going to have post-game shows. If it's too late in that day, it'll usually be within the day or two. So we're going to be at you guys twice a week this year, bring you guys the content, bring you guys the coverage, and keep coming at it, no matter if it's me, Cats, Cody, Stunna, Bucko. No matter who it is, the Buccaneers are here to talk Bucs football. It's been an incredible time talking with you two gentlemen tonight. Hopefully next week we're celebrating a victory as well against a divisional foe. We should be celebrating victory. Division games are never easy, but I think we'll have this one. We'll talk more about that Thursday, guys. Have a great night, fellas. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Until next time, the Buccaneers is out. Get at us on Twitter at Buccaneers. Get at me, Tricky Tones BGTE. Thanks so much for joining us on this short but sweet edition of the Buccaneers.